everyone, Carol here from Practical Mystic. Thanks for joining me today, and I'd like to take a moment out now and say thank you to all my new subscribers. And yes, I am listening to you, and this is why I am beginning this new series, because you have voiced what kind of content you would like to have on my channel. I would like to have on my channel as well, and that is to inform and to give you what is of interest to you, and that seems to be learning the tarot from the ground up. So I thought I would begin by doing the best that I can through this media to teach you the basics of the tarot, which I love to include the other sciences, which particularly are astrology and lots of numerology for the minor arcana, because I really believe that if you understand the numerology in the minor arcana, you can read any deck and any pip card in the pip decks like the Marseille. Okay, so where do I start? Well, if I am going from the ground up, let me very quickly, for those of you who are neophytes, say that the tarot is made up of 78 cards divided into two sections. There's a minor arcana and there's a major arcana. The major arcana really deals with the spiritual, the mystical, and we're not going to talk about that today. The minor arcana, I think this is really important for you to catch because it simplifies everything. Look at it as the mundane world, the everyday world you and I and everyone else participates in, because it relates to the four elements of nature and it relates to departments of life that make us up. So from that standpoint, let's go ahead and look at what is considered the first card of the major arcana, but we're gonna expound on that a little bit more later on. Okay, so we are beginning with the first card known as the aces. The minor arcana, there are 56 cards, and the sequence is 1 through 14. 4 of those cards, 11, 12, 13, and 14, are court cards. We're not going to discuss those today. We're going to be looking at basically the beginning point because they are the purest of the elements that I just talked about. All right, and let's discuss that. So looking at the suit of wands, also known as clubs, also known as staves in different tarot decks. This is fire, and fire is basically the element that is very, very active. That's all I'm going to say right now. So there is the wands, and we have the fire element. The next we have the swords, and the swords are the air elements, and the department of life that you can look at with that is the thinking, the reasoning, the communication, and the intellect. So we have a mind where here we kind of have a spirit, an energy, an impetus. Okay. The next one then is the department of our emotions, the suit of cups. Here we have feeling. We also have sensation. We also have intuition. And it is a complex suit because our emotions are complex. And then we come to the fourth element, the fourth suit, which is known as pentacles as well as coins. And this is the earth element. And the earth element, of course, is what we have, how we earn our living. It is where we have property and cultivate. It is our career. It's where we live and how we prosper and what we accumulate here on the world. So those are very simply the departments of life in the minor arcana. Now, what I want to add to that introduces the astrology of the tarot. But first, I want to say that the aces are the purest form, number one, of the element. Okay, they are potentiality. They are ready for you to take. They're the initiative. They are the seed, but you've got to plant them. Okay, so that's why they're called potentiality, and they are not grounded. They are being offered. So in astrology, when we introduce it into the tarot, the purest form is through the sun signs that are related and correspond to the 4 suits and the 4 elements. So they are the 12 signs of the zodiac. So let's begin here with the coins or the pentacles. The earth signs in astrology, of course, are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. That's the earth signs. The wands, the fire element, well, we know that there are 3 astrological fire signs, and they are Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. Then we have the air signs, and the air signs astrologically are Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini. And then lastly, we have the water elements and the water signs, which are Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. Okay, now that introduces into the tarot the zodiac signs. They are also very instrumental and important in understanding the court cards. But as I said earlier, we're not going to look at that today. What I am going to do now is tell you how the suits are paired up. And the suits are paired up by 2 powers or 2 forces. Those 2 forces are going to be called positive and negative, or female and male energy, or active and receptive, and they are paired up. The cups and the earth signs, so let's say water and earth, are compatible. They get along beautifully, and they are considered the receptive feminine signs as well as energies in the tarot. Okay? The other 2, where we have wands and we have air, they're very compatible, and they are active. They are the masculine signs, and they are energetic, and they push out, and they're creative, and they are also powerful in that they can be used, wands, clubs, for maybe hitting or building, and swords can be used for penetrating or infiltrating, and they can cut. And sometimes, because they're related to communication, they can cut to the chase and really be specific in the way they communicate. So these are our masculines, our fire and our air, and looked on that way. And these are the feminine receptive, the cups and the pentacles, okay? So let's now introduce numerology. First of all, I want to say that the numerology that I'm going to teach you is going to be more tarot-based than it is going to be when we are looking at evaluating our birth signs and our names, because of course numerology not only has to do with numbers, but it also corresponds to a later. Now, the Gematria is the oldest form of numbers, letters, and also sounds. And that really is more of a basis of what the tarot entails, because it's geographical, it's in forms, it's alchemical, and that relates. So I want to differentiate the two types of what we consider numerology. Also, understanding numbers is going back. There is always an occult interpretation of the numbers, and that's what we're going to do, or I'm going to talk about here. All right, now you heard me say from the beginning that in numerology, well, maybe you didn't hear me say it. I might not have said it. It might have been in my thought process. But in numerology, there are also two forces, like there are in the tarot when it comes to pairing off the suits. There are odd numbers and there are even numbers. The odd numbers, of course, are 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. The even numbers are 2, 4, 6, 8. It's also very interesting that the odd numbers have an odd number. There are 5 of them, and that's an odd number. And the even numbers have an even number. There are 4 of them. And the odd numbers relate to the male, the solar, back to that active principle. The even numbers are the lunar, the feminine, the receptive. So you can see the correlation right there and how they pair off with what we just spoke about earlier. So the wands and the swords have that solar power of the odd numbers, but this is the first, so it's not like you're going to see that these pairs are only odd, because now I'm telling you that the cups and the coins or pentacles are the feminine or the receptive of the suits. So that is why the tarot very mystically and wisely do not start out with numbers. They're just called aces. It's not, we know it as the first card of the sequence of the 10 in the suit. And then, of course, the 4 court cards would continue that suit. But they are also not numbered. They are labeled, but we understand them to be 14 in total. So I also wanted to show you, and maybe it's important that you see what I said earlier, the potentiality of the suits, because in the Rider-Waite, they are looked upon as the hand of God offering. And I want to make a differentiation here of the two. Look at the solar or the masculine. They're gripping the club, the wand, and they're gripping the sword, okay? The hand is grasping it very tightly. In the feminine, lunar, receptive, they're gentle, they are open, they are receiving, they are holding, they're not gripping, okay? The hands in the tarot here are said to be the hand of God, an offering, spirit. They're not grounded, they're in the air, surrounded by clouds. And I wanted to continue that motif by also showing you a beautiful deck. It is called The Golden Tarot by Kat Block. And this deck supposedly is made from pictures in a church in Europe, of course, in the beginning of the Renaissance. But the reason I am bringing them to your attention, to go back to the essence of the number 1 really being, let's say, bipolar, not one odd or even, but dual in nature. And even above that is how the aces are mystical because they begin with angelic figures, all of them. And then again, you can see the softness of the suit of cups here. And then the gentleness here also of the pentacle or coins, where here, where we have the wands, we've got a wall of fire in the back. We have activity, we have energy stemming. And here with the swords, we have some contemplation, we have some seriousness as he holds that sword, which is at the end of it is the crown, so the crown of power. All right, so I wanted to just bring that up. So now let's continue on with looking at the numbers and realizing that there are exceptions to the rule. You heard me say earlier that it is divided into two powers. The odds are the masculine, the active, the solar, and the odd numbers are considered the feminine, the lunar, the receptive, okay? So the exception is that not all the numbers. We're hinting at the one, how significant that is, because in the occult teachings of numerology, the ancients looked at the number one as cosmic, as pure spirit. Again, back to the potentiality that I labeled for our aces. And it has to do with deity, okay, a special energy. It's the Big Bang, the force. Okay, so I wanted to put that. But the other exception is number 6. Number 6 is said to be dual, and a very quick, easy way you can learn that or remember that, because again, learning the tarot has a lot to do with memorization and correlation, is 6 is the only number that faces the opposite direction of all 9 numbers. There's only 9 digit, 9 energy, 9 numbers in numerology. Everything else, double digits, is a higher octave of the original digits, the base numbers of 1 through 9. 6 faces the other way. So 6 is the friendly number, and it is dual in nature, meaning that it has both the masculine and the feminine properties, the receptive and the active. And it works well with all other numbers. I think it might be wise for me to also say that it's important for you to understand that numbers, similar numbers, whether they are odd and even, when they are together, don't produce much, okay? They're too friendly, they're too complacent, they're too agreeable. So in numerology, as well as in the tarot, you want the odd number to be with an even number. You get the electricity, right? When you get, let's just talk about creativity. Electricity, you have the polarity of magnetism and an electrical current. You have male and female who are opposites but are the co-creators of the world, offsprings. So you have polarity that when unified is beneficial. So we grow in that polarity, that opposition, and that's so true in the tarot. So 6 being the friendly number, it doesn't matter if it's with a fellow 4, another even number, or if it's with an odd number. It works well together. There's another exception as well. Now 7 basically is an odd number. It is masculine, but it is more meditative. In fact, I'm going to help you understand that by looking at its mystical power of the 7 by correlating to its ruling planet, which is Neptune. So 7, even though it is masculine and it is an odd number and it is active, can kind of step aside and become more tempered, complacent, relaxed, meditative, and achieve success that way. I'm not done yet, if that isn't confusing enough. There is another number that isn't cut in stone, even though 8, you know, is an even number. Oh my goodness, 8 is much too strong to be saying that it is only receptive. If you look at the way the number 8 is formed, it basically is 2 O's. We're going to say 0, and we'll talk about 0 in a minute. But look at it as 2 O's joining together. Symbolically, it is the above, all right? Let's say the creative spirit into matter below. So the 8, even though it is considered an even number, and it has that feminine aspect. It is dynamic and takes on more of the organizational property of its energy. And of course, we know that when it is on its side, it is the infinity sign, also known as the Holy Lemniscate. Okay? So those are the exceptions to the rule. And going back to what I said we were going to talk about here in a minute is the idea that these numbers are basically powerful, interesting, but I want to reiterate here, I'm talking about the 6, the 7, and the 8, but they're not easy to categorize. And the best way to do that is by understanding their planets. Now, the 6 is Venus, and we know that Venus is, whoops, I just dropped my earring. Venus is the scales, justice, and it wants to balance things out. It wants to be fair. So look at that 6, understanding that Venus is at work here. I just talked about the number 8, and the 8 is the planet Saturn, and Saturn is kind of the teacher. The Saturn says, hey, we got to roll up our sleeves, get things done, and the best way to do that is to utilize our time and our energy in the most constructive way, and that is by being inspired by a higher energy of above and bringing it down and manifesting it into matter. So we have Saturn for 8, we have Venus for 6, and then for 7, we have that mystical Neptune. So understanding that hopefully gives you an idea of how we're going to use that, let's say, correlation, that interpretation in understanding the number 1 through 9, well, really 10. Again, 10 is just a higher octave of the number 1. We now have the 0. The 0 is not a number. So you didn't hear me say that it was called an odd number or an even number, because that is also dual in nature. And the 0 is basically a unit that on a mystical level, we're going to say it is the Alpha and the Omega. It is the universe. It is naught. It is nothing. It is everything. It is a cipher. It can be looked at as universal consciousness or the God essence, and everything stems from that void. We can look at it that way. For today, I want you to look at it as an amplifier, because I said that 10 was just a higher octave of the number 1. So when it is in back of a number, it amplifies the number before it. So if 1 is all energy, all potential, it is solar, it is a sun source, then when you're at the 10 level, you have perfected that. You have achieved it. And now there's a little bit of hesitation. And let's look at the 10 here. Let me be very specific. You've achieved it at the 10 level of the 10 of Wands. So you're picking up your wands, your fire, all your ideas, all your creation, and now you're moving on. So there is a hesitation of what's next. I've graduated, I've completed this part, now what's next? So I'm going to leave it there, folks, and our next video is going to be about looking at the sequence of number 1 through 10 in each of the suits, and how understanding the numerical value will help you understand and interpret the meaning of that card, that minor arcana. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know if you have any questions. And again, I appreciate everyone listening and participating. And I welcome your comments. Let me know what you think. All right, everybody, I'm closing for now. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.